Hideki Kamiya is a really well-known person in the video game industry. From his work on Resident Evil 2 specifically, known as one of the best survival horror games of all time. His work on the Devil May Cry series, which is known as probably one of the best action games of all time. He worked on also the Beautiful Joe series. He worked on Okami, and with all those great things, he kind of puts them all together and makes it into this game called Bayonetta. Now, with this greatness, there seems to be a lot of not learning very much from his past adventures in his past games, because there are very clear and glaring mistakes in this game that come with it. But does it take me out of the experience? Welcome to my review of Bayonetta. For all my reviews, they will be spoiler free, and not to worry about those who are interested in spoilers, I will always have an additional video collaborated with this one called Spoiler Talk, and you can look forward to that too later this week, if not early next week. Now, I do ask that when we go into the spoiler talk, we can talk about everything in the comments below. Nothing is off limits in regards to spoilers. But if you are going to leave comments below on this video for this review, I do ask that you do leave them spoiler free. Now, getting right to it, Bayonetta. Bayonetta is a woman that has lost her memory and has been in search of it for the last 20 years. And through the game, you start gaining your memories and learning about the character and who she is and understanding everything like that. Now, the arching theme in this game is that there are two groups of individuals that represent light and dark. The Umbra Witches, which Bayonetta represents, which is considered the dark side, and then the Lumen Sages, they represent the light. Now, on top of that element, there is something known as the Eyes of the World, and they are called, there are two pieces, and one is called the left eye and one is called the right eye, and together they create the Eyes of the World. And each eye is a gem, and it's given to each faction group, so one to the Umbra Witches, one to the Lumen Sages, and they give each of them one piece, and the whole point of it is that each eye is supposed to observe history and take it in to oversee how history unfolds. Now, Bayonetta understands she has one piece already of an eye, and so to find out her memory, she had gotten from a source information to a place called Vigrid, a fictional city in Europe, and going there, she hopes to find more about herself and understand who she is, because again, she has lost her memory. And along this adventure, you do meet some interesting cast of characters. Now, one of them is a man named Luca. He meets Bayonetta when he was a child. His father awoke in Bayonetta, and Bayonetta had killed him. Now, ever since, he has vowed vengeance on Bayonetta for killing his father. Now, on top of that, there's other characters. There's Enzo, who is the kind of the comic relief. He's very minimal in the game, but he does take over every scene he's in. It's very awesome to see. He's a comedy guy. He's an informant for Bayonetta and kind of helps set up the story. Now, you also have a guy named Rodin, which a man who owns a place that I like to call the gun bar, because and it's called the Gates of Hell. And this is where you can buy weapons, tools, accessories, techniques, and special items to help you along your journey. You also run into a young girl who calls you Mommy, and that's all I'm going to leave for that one. Most of that's going to be spoiler talk. And then there is another woman who has the same kind of abilities you do. And again, I will hold that more information on that character for the spoiler talk. But in this game, gaining back your memories as you go through the game is an interesting narrative tool, and they do it in a couple different ways. They do it in cutscenes, and then they also do it in these little looks like frame by frames in a film. And it reminded me of Beautiful Joe and the way they handle Beautiful Joe with the frames. It's when they're in the frames, they're still, and it's basically voiceover, and which wasn't. I would have preferred full cutscenes, because the full cutscenes they did show were really cool and impressive, and they had cool combat and all that kind of stuff. And the time when they were doing just the frame by frame stills wasn't really appealing to me, just out of my observation. But going through and doing gaining your memories as a way to tell the story, it can be a really good narrative tool. Now, in this case, it really didn't work for me. And the reason why was that there is just so much lore in this game. You can tell by playing, when you're playing this game, there is just so much lore and so much to tell that you really can't get it in telling it in the cutscenes, or they're trying to mention things but not explain what it is too much. And so at times you were feeling so confused and not understanding what is going on in the world around you. And especially when you're trying to do it in flashbacks and cutscenes to remember your memories, it didn't explain enough to be able to feel like you had more answered questions than having more questions. Because in the end, I had a trillion billion questions compared to where I probably only answered 5-10 of my questions. And that's not how good storytelling goes. Now, I understand they might have think they were going to get a second game, which they did, which I will play very soon, and I will put up a review for that as well. But when you make a game, you need the story to stand by its own and then grow on the establishment of the characters. And I don't think there wasn't enough established. I think they were trying to explain too much. And in the flashbacks, it made it ultra confusing and ultra difficult to catch. So that's something I had. And it's really something very similar to the original Devil May Cry game, where it really didn't tell you very much until the end of the game, which for this one, I will say Bayonetta probably did better than Devil May Cry did, because they explained more in between than they did. Now they did a ton of explaining at the end, just like in Devil May Cry, but they had a lot to kind of keep you going in the middle compared to the past Devil May Cry game in the very first one. And like I said, this game is truly an evolution of all the games that he have created before it. And it is no different in this in regards to an evolution of Devil May Cry's combat. And in this case, it is for the better. It's a true combo-driven fighting game, and it has different weapons and accessories that you can flip out with Bayonetta. She always is going to have the heals with the guns on them, but changing to having pistols or to having a sword, it was really fun to kind of change out those things and see what different combos you could create, and very flashy, because that's the whole point. This game is meant to be flashy and super competitive. Now, the thing that I would say that made it evolve even more was something called Witch Time. Now, Witch Time is a mechanic in the games where you dodge the attack for the moment. If you dodge the attack right when they're about to attack you and it's about to hit you, if you dodge it, you're going to go into something called Witch Time. And in that time slows down extremely for your opponents and allows you to move at regular pace. So you can put a bunch of combos on a bunch of different enemies and either kill them or really lower their health down. And it really encourages you to understand each type of opponent and how they try to attack you, and to try to exploit their weaknesses. Now, the attacks that you do are quite flashy, and even after you beat them, you can pick up some other weapons and do even more flashier combos with some new weapons. But they're only temporary. They kind of have like a durability meter. They only last for so long. And even on top of that, Bayonetta has summoning abilities, and get this, with her hair. Of all things, she summons things with her hair. Even almost her entire outfit is made out of her hair, which is part of her magic. So when she summons creatures through a summoning seal, she literally, the creature's texture is her hair, and it takes form of a beast. And there's multiple different kinds, and it was very interesting to see what kind of beast she was going to create next. And it had a dance move that kind of went with it as her summoning, which was kind of cool. But it was just really cool as it come out, and there was something really cool and satisfying, because there's also in your regular combos, there's summonings of a heal to kick opponents when she's kicking, and there's also an opportunity to bring out a fist. And so it was really cool to kind of have a finisher where you finish your combo, and it's either finished by a kick coming through a summoning seal or a punch coming through a summoning seal, and it just made it feel extra powerful and made you feel awesome. Now, once you build up your magic all the way, you can unleash different kinds of special attacks as well. And they range from different kind of torture devices, and they can help to eliminate the opponent or really injure the opponent, and which is really helpful. And they range from like chopping off heads, a coffin of spikes, a smashing machine where you kind of wind it up and then you let it rip and then it'll just smash right into the opponent. There's one that I call the Wheel of Death, which is, it's kind of like a spiked wheel that you turn like Price is Right style, and it'll just like brace up against the opponent and smash him. So, and the best part is that, like, even though I played the game, I think there were probably a bunch of torture devices that I was not able to activate yet that I could have if I went back and did it again. So, and for this game, it's a fighting game, so clearly after each and every battle they award you like a medal for how you did at that single battle, and then they also do that at the end of the chapter. They take everything all together of how the medals you earned and put it into one, and then award you with a trophy at the end of each chapter. Now in the range to like how do they score you? They score you by different things. They score you by the damage that you gave to somebody. How many lives did you lose? You're going to lose a lot of lives in this game, I promise you that. How much damage you took, and more things like that as well. How much health did you use, that kind of thing. And it's supposed to encourage you to play and get better and hopefully master the game. For me, it's not my cup of tea in regards to like the thing I'll play all the time. So I probably will not go back and try to master the combat system, especially since I'm playing Bayonetta 2 next. So I'll probably master that combat system instead. But it's a way for people that do enjoy those to play again for that kind of thing. Now, for the creatures you fight, they're supposed to represent angels, and like the coins that you earn as halos off their heads. Now, how I feel about that is like they are more of the angels from hell because they look like no saints. The creatures are really out of this world. And it's not just how they look, it's also the scale. It's like they just started with an epic scale and they're like, let's make it even bigger than that. So, and they really expand on scale figuratively and literally. And I did not feel as much scale. I haven't felt this much like scale in the game in regards to enemies, opponents, those kinds of things. Since God of War 3, really. When I was climbing on the Titans, that's the last time I really felt this kind of scale in regards to how big the opponents are and crawling on them and those kinds of things. And it was even more interesting because once you fought an enemy at the end of the chapter, which is considered the boss, they ended up being part of the regular rogue gallery of bosses. I mean, a regular rogue gallery of opponents, but just with less health. And it was just really interesting to see because it really rewarded you and made you feel like you're really progressing rather than having you be able to spend points on like health or spend points on to be able to improve fighting, like attack power, defense power. There's none of those in this game. And so all it has is based off its combat system. So the way it basically makes you feel more powerful because you're taking on people that were bosses before and easily or beating them more frequently. It just really shows of how improved you are as a fighter, in that there really isn't an adjustment as much in improvement of your abilities. Now there's some abilities that you do get, but they're just more flashier combos. They're not like you have an amazing power that's going to annihilate everyone on the field. No, there's nothing like that. You have to use your skills to beat the opponents that are before you. And the creativity on the boss battles were really a breath of fresh air. And I'm definitely going to rank my favorite boss battles in the spoiler review, and basically by me saying that, you can tell how epic, important, and great these bosses were if I want to rate them in a spoiler talk. So look forward to them. And the final thing I wanted to add about the bosses is that they had a unique way of fighting them, and then you never fought this one boss the same way as you fought another boss. You also didn't fight the bosses the same way that you fought the regular opponents that you faced in battles. And even when they brought those bosses into the regular battles, you could still fight them the regular way. And I know this is very vague. Once you play the game or come to the spoiler talk, you'll definitely understand what I mean. Now, for the game, its music and animation truly had a unique feel that you just don't find in any other games. It had a jazzy record with some pop mixed in with that, and she constantly was dancing, and it was kind of a theme for her. Like literally, she would say all the time, like to her opponents, like "Let's dance, boys," those kinds of things. And so, one thing I do have to say for her is that, like, is Bayonetta hypersexualized because it's a Japanese game, like other Japanese games? Absolutely, she's hypersexualized. The only thing that makes it feel a little bit different compared to other Japanese games is she's not shy about it. Not at all. She what I call owns it. She's sexualized in your face kind of style. And when you run into those, usually in the past they're usually really shy people and they're just hypersexualized by their looks. But no, she brings it in personality-wise as well. It's just, what I consider, she's very unapologetic about how sexual she is. And an example I could use of how she owns it and how unapologetic she is, I picked up an enemy's a Triton type weapon, and I staked it. Her special was she staked it into the ground, and then she used it as a dance pole and would dance on the actual like weapon, and then around it was causing damage to people around her, kind of like a shield, but also an attack. And so it was really basically because she didn't care. I mean, she's unapologetic about it. She decided to dance sexually on the pole. So that's how she like owns it. But with that, there's also a downturn to that. It doesn't make her feel as developed as a character. It really doesn't. Not at all. I think that with having the persona that she has, it really loses the relatability that she has as a character. It doesn't give you a way to try to connect with her as a person to start. It just makes her feel like just this wide open, wacky person that you can't relate to, because there's no one that's like that, really. I mean, there are people out there that are very unapologetic about how sexual they are, but it's just not someone that you run into on a regular basis. And so it's really hard to relate to that. But again, like the way they have her kicking ass and at the same time very fresh. It's very different for female character in a Japanese type game. Not having the shyness, but being very upfront and unapologetic about it. And I mean, she kicks ass just as well as Dante does, and that's a great comparison to be in that type of boat. Now, with all these great things that I was talking about and how I said earlier in my review, it's a great evolution of the games that came before him, taking the elements that he liked from each of them and just putting them all together to make a game. There's just a couple really glaring problems with this game that just can't be ignored. People, and you'd think like, because Devil May Cry came out over 10 years ago, like they would have solved this problem by now. Like Hideki Kamiya would be like, yes, this is an issue I always run into in these games, but it never is. It's like no one, either someone doesn't say it because they give these games good scores and they don't mention it, and then they're like, well, I don't need to fix it because they gave me a good score. I'm going to get a good bonus out of this. So it's just weird of how they do this. But one of the things that was just bad was the camera. And it was just, with all the action going so fast and furious and people moving all over the stage and fighting each other, the camera, it wouldn't do it all the time, but it would do it frequent enough that I would notice it. And that's where it became a problem. And it would also do it in the worst moments that I needed. It was like when I had like 5 enemies around me. And somehow the camera would push itself to a spot where I can't see a thing. Or if I'm trying to move the camera with my stick to try to get a better view, but I'm blocked everywhere and it's not good. I'm not able to use the camera. And then there's another piece of it that just doesn't help out the camera too, which is going to be my next thing, which is with the camera issues, I felt the character movement didn't help it, because the character movement felt way too loose. It was to a point where I felt like I had less control of my character rather than more control of my character. And for this type of game that relies on you to avoid people right when they're attacking for combos so that you can do witch time, and a game that's combo heavy, you need to be able to feel like you have control of your character. Just like any fighting game, just like a regular fighter game one-on-one, you need to feel like you have control of your character. And this one, she felt too light. I felt like when I was moving the left stick to move the character around, it felt like I was dragging a rag doll because it was going so fast. It was going zoom, 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 and I felt like I had no control of her. I really didn't, and it felt like she had no weight to her. Like the pushing of it didn't cause a weight of her movement, because I mean, human beings are not supposed to be light as a feather. We weigh something, and so when we move the stick, it moves our bodies, and we have to move that weight. And so it just felt like there was no weight to her. And it was if it was tighter, if her mechanics were just, the movement was tighter, she would have been. I think it would have been a lot better, and would have helped only the camera, but I think it would have helped the game overall as well. And I think Devil May Cry, the original, handled the movement better than this game, and Devil May Cry was made over 10 years ago, and you'd think he would learn from that or try to improve that, but I think maybe him trying to improve it, I think he made it worse. Now, the other part that I had a big issue with was QuickTime events, and I know when this game was originally made, when it was made for Xbox 360 and PS3 and PC, this game really, QuickTime events were big. But I think they were so frustrating and unnecessary. Like, for a lot of the times, Bayonetta would do a lot of stylish moves and cutscenes, and without you pressing any kind of buttons. And then you would have to like react, and then there were like little moments where you had to react to something with combinations. And because it was so different, and they happened so infrequently that, like, they happened every chapter, but they didn't happen every cutscene. And so it just happened so infrequently that I kept dying every time the first time, and then I'd be able to fix it. But it was just like, it was a pointless death. The other part of it that I found frustrating in regards to the QuickTime events is that the combination of buttons that were requested of you were really strange and very different, and not, as in sync. So an example, Resident Evil 4. The two combinations you do click on QuickTime events, besides like the single square, circle, those kinds of things, were like a combination of two buttons, or two different combination button presses. They were the square and the X together, and then it was the R1 and L1 together. Those were the two button combinations that you could press together. That were the only two button combinations, and then besides that, it was usually square or X, one of those two buttons that you would press. And so in this game, like, it had you do the stick going upwards and jump button, or stick going downwards and jump button. But then, like, when you had to do like a counter, like, they had you do a two combination button press, but it was in the top corner instead of like right next to each other where your fingers rest. And so it's just, they weren't tight, and it was way too unpredictable. And especially when I was thinking it was going to be a jump move, it was actually a counter move. And then the point of that, on top of that, was they gave you less than a second to figure it out, compared to like past other games. They give you at least a 1.5 seconds to make that decision, so that you make it at the right time. I understand it might have been pushing the whole part of being a action game and being really fast and furious, but it didn't help. It really didn't. I think it just made it worse. So I hope when I go play Bayonetta 2 that they just get rid of these, or make the button presses only two different combinations, instead of trying to mix and match the combinations, and make it more clear of when it's going to be a counter and when it's going to be a jump, because they're so different in how you press them that you just get so caught off guard. It just doesn't work. Now, I will tell you that for playing this game, I recommend that you play it on easy if you've never played a Devil May Cry game, or any kind of type of game like that, because there's only two difficulties at the start. It's normal and easy, and they don't even unlock hard mode until you beat the game. And I will tell you, you're going to get frustrated. You're going to throw controllers on normal mode for very stupid things, compared to if you were doing it on easy, where you can understand the mechanics better and then go into the harder difficulty levels, especially if you're wanting to really get in depth with this game and what it has to offer. Because again, it's a good game. It's a good game. So overall, in this 10 hours that I had with Bayonetta, is it fun? Yes, I will say it was really fun. Does it have very glaring problems? Absolutely. But I think this game was a great evolution of past games that have come before it. And yet, even though it still has the glaring problems, there are some fresh new things in here that you're not going to get in some other games. Do I think it's a full price game that you need to pay $60 for? Absolutely not. I don't think you should be paying $60 for this game. You only get 10 hours unless you go back and play more and more of the game, which for someone like me, I'm not into that as much. So I'm not getting as much bang for my buck. Now, when I review Bayonetta 2, I'll let you know if the combination between buying Bayonetta 2 and then getting Bayonetta 1 for free on the Switch was worth it. And I will say overall for the Switch version, it ran well on both modes. It ran well being docked to your television, and it ran great being on handheld mode as well. And surprisingly, I have the Pro controller, and I actually preferred, and it might have been that I was playing a lot of the early stuff in handheld mode, and then I really played a lot of the end in with my Pro controller and on docked mode, but I felt like I had better control when I was playing in handheld mode with the sticks that were on the Joy-Cons. So, but obviously, just like I disclosed, it could have been it was early part of the game and I wasn't playing the later part of the game. That could be easily it. But I'm really excited to try Bayonetta 2 and see where the story goes, what other battles of bosses have before me, and see if they fix some of these issues, because I hope they do. I think these are very fixable for the next game, and if not fixed for this next game, I'll let you know in the review, but hopefully they fix it for Bayonetta 3. So now, just so you are aware, I don't score games, and I'm just going to let you know why. I'm only going to do this on my first probably 4 or 5 reviews, and then after that I won't be doing this anymore. But one, I don't score games because if I gave a game like an 8 today, it's not going to be an 8 4 or 5 years from now. It's not going to be the same score. And I don't want you comparing scores. I want you to be comparing your experiences. I want us to have conversations down below in the comment section about how you felt about certain things in the game and how other people felt about those, and have those conversations, because we like different things. Everyone has a different taste, and I try to be very objective when I'm playing these, to not be of like, what's my personal taste. Now, I have let you know I do disclose what my personal tastes are, but my arguments are more evidence-based rather than how I felt. Now, sometimes I do explain my feelings, and they come with evidence too, but it's just more, I try to be as objective as possible, and hopefully you don't come to me as your only source to look at reviews. I hope you look at other sources, because I should not be the end-all be-all of whether you play this game or not. If you find that my opinion matters a lot to you, I really appreciate it, but I do encourage you to go check out other people and see what they think of the game as well, because the more information you have, the better decision you can make for yourself of whether you will like this game or not. And the other part is, finally, it makes my channel different. A lot of publications, because of Metacritic and the importance of that for game companies in regards to bonuses and those kinds of things based off their Metacritic score, they score games. I don't want to score games, because I think I want to be different, and again, I like having more of a conversation, and it's what I like to do. So that is my review for Bayonetta. What did you think of the game if you picked it up? Either if you played it on the last gen stuff, or did you play it on the Switch? Let's have those conversations in the comments below. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends. And if you want to keep up with the content I'm releasing each and every week here on Freeze Frame Rate, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And final note, please look forward to my spoiler talk. That will be coming out either next week, early next week, or at the end of this week. Look forward to that, and let's have those conversations in the spoiler talk with all spoilers. But right now, please leave them spoiler free for comments below. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Mitch. I'm signing off saying, see you soon.